going through the case of Thye Enterprise and Emo and others. Let us proceed to the court hearing to understand more about this case.
Order, the hearing will commence soon. Can the defendants D1 and D2 please go to the defendant's stand? Your Honor, I want to bring an action against the defendants for the following charges for improper transactions in the year 1999 to 2001. Firstly, the write-off of a sum owed by D2. Secondly, the write-off of sum owed by parties related to the defendant. Next, payment made to D1 and D2. Next, the investment of a sum into a foreign partnership. And lastly, the payment of dividends for the financial year ending 1999 to 2001. Do the directors plead guilty to the charges that the plaintiff has alleged? Your Honor, I do not plead guilty to the alleged charges that the plaintiff has brought up. I'm innocent! Oh my God! How dare you ever say these words? You're definitely the most shameless person I've ever seen. You totally ruined my company through your filthy hands. Silence, please! This is not the marketplace for both parties to quarrel. Can the plaintiff please state the relevant evidence for the alleged charges? Your Honor, the company has been insolvent since the financial year ended 28 February 1999. But the transactions were approved between 1999 and 2001. Those transactions were supposedly to be used to return the money owed to creditors. It should not be disposed at the mercy of both D1 and D2. How do you know how the transactions they were made?
Do you think that there is a breach of fiduciary duty by both D1 and D2? I think there is. The defendants, being the directors of the company, had breached their duty under Section 1572 as they allowed the transactions to be made while they were directors of the company.
Other than Section 1573, they also breached other duties. Don't let the truth just get off the hook so easily.
Okay, relax. Other than Section 1572, D1 and D2 also breached Section 1571. Once the plaintiff is insolvent, the director owed a duty to keep its property in order to pay its creditor. The transaction made also disregard the interest of the creditors as they were not accounted for and were in the interest of D1 and D2. The interests of the party were not disclosed when the company invested in another company. Thus, they had breached Section 156 of the Companies Act. Is this the end? I don't think so. Let's return to the hearing now.
Your Honor, D1 and D2 had declared interim dividends of 321,900 when the company is insolvent. This is absolutely ridiculous since dividend payments would have reduced the capital of the company. I want to hear the defendant's opinion. Your Honor, I'm afraid that the plaintiff has been accusing me on this law. I'm the director of the company. Why would I do something that would cause a disadvantage to the company? Ask these two. Same goes for me. I would not have gained anything detrimental to the company. Please believe me. I'm innocent. Stop it with your nonsense and listen to the judge. After hearing the fiery debate, I hold there was no single test for insolvency. Regard should be had to all of the evidence that appeared relevant to the question of insolvency. In this case, the overall evidence established insolvency in the relevant years during which the alleged improper transactions occurred. Next, since the company was insolvent in the relevant years, D1 and D2 should not have approved before transactions and reduced the assets of the company, which should have been available for discharge of its liability to its creditors. These four transactions were clearly not in the interest of the creditors, and other D2 and D1 could not explain this transaction. The company should not have declared dividends in the relevant years, since any dividends would further reduce the capital of the company, which should have been available to discharge its liability to its creditors. The dividends were made clearly for the personal benefit of the four defendants. However, while D1 and D2 were liable for breaching their director's duty to declare the dividends, the company's pleading did not support a cause of action against D3 and D4 as constructive trustees on the ground of no use of funds subject to a trust. Consequently, the claims against D3 and D4 in regard of dividends failed.
Against D1 and D2, I make the following orders. D1 and D2 are jointly and solely liable to fund the dividend payment of 3